Let's talk about that growth thing, because it's one of my personal bugbears with specifically like the venture capital space, where investors like venture capitals come into companies and because of their model relying on this massive outperformance of one or two companies, they put huge pressure on companies to expand faster than would be considered sensible.
Yep.
And I speak to business owners that have so much pressure on them from investors to make decisions that actually don't make sense. And we've seen recently kind of the WeWork debacle, but a lot of that was basically one of their biggest investors said, "You're not thinking big enough. Like, go crazy."
Yeah.
And they went crazy.
And they did what they were told.
So my challenge with that is that actually you have a lot of really good businesses that could be here in 20, 30, 40 years' time delivering value. And actually what happens is they overexpand and fall over because there's so much pressure. Now, I know you've been doing a lot of work, and it's interesting because at the end of my book, I talk about building companies for longevity. How do you build a pan-generational business? And I know that you've been doing a lot of work recently on doubling companies, but it's more about sustainable growth rather than exponential
I've been
growth.
researching companies that double and double and double and double. Companies like Lego and Fender guitars and even bands. I've been looking at bands like one of the case studies, Dolly Parton, who ended up building a $700 million net worth through country music. Obviously, McDonald's, Nike, and all of those kind of enduring brands that have been doubling and doubling and doubling and staying relevant for a very long period of time. So there's some key principles around what creates a company that doubles and doubles and doubles. But one of the interesting ideas that I stumbled upon is that many great companies get going at about year 20. So, for example, Apple was started in 1978. It was almost bust in 1998, had a reinvention moment in 1998, and then became the biggest company in the world 10 years later. You see this, there's a lot of them. There's obviously Apple and Microsoft, but around year 20, you see a lot of companies hit this weird wall where they're kind of like lost and they're not sure what the hell to do. And then they reinvent and away they go, much bigger than you would have.
That's really interesting, because if you look at the average age of the companies that we acquire, it's 20 years.
Yeah.
And what happens is the minute they get into this new environment, this publicly listed company environment, suddenly they can access much bigger contracts, much bigger budget.
Start thinking like a bigger business.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, so that was fascinating. So there are a number of principles around this, but what's interesting is that a lot of the needs and wants that people have out there in the marketplace haven't changed. People need the same things. They might change the way they get those things, but if a company's got a good culture, it can innovate. It's actually in the running to deliver upon those needs and to leverage its case studies and leverage its history more than it thinks. I think a really fascinating idea is that things are never as good as they seem. Things are never as bad as they seem.
Yeah.
So a company that might have gone stale has probably got a lot of innovation, but no one's recognizing it. And a company that everyone thinks is super amazing and innovative probably is sitting behind the scenes going, well, what the hell are we going to do next?